Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Karen, how's it going? I want to put my 2 weeks in today.
Okay.
Have you ever felt an unshakable compulsion to chase something, no matter the cost? No matter how much you fail or how far you drift, you just can't let go of this one thing. My name is DiGiovanni, and I walked away from a $200,000 a year career to chase my unshakable compulsion to be a DJ and a music producer. And just recently, I went on tour across the country, encountering chaos, conflict. I'm just extremely frustrated. And this one question that haunted me the entire time I was on tour. What do you sacrifice when you refuse to quit your dream? This is the price of a dream. Alrighty, so I just quit my job. This story starts with me quitting my job as a copywriter in corporate America. I worked remotely writing ads for companies like Hulu and Amazon, and I made more money than I ever thought I would. But something inside me kept saying, this is not the right path for me. That's because since I was 13, I had one goal: to make a career as a DJ and music producer. And for a while, I went after it hard. One more time, make some fucking noise! By the time I was in my early 20s, I thought I needed to get serious, make money, get a stable job, and get my life together. So I put the dream on the back burner. Eventually, I couldn't ignore the itch anymore. I had to come out of retirement, so I started DJing again. My comeback? A 2025 tour called the Dapper Rapper Tour. A cross-country run with 4 rappers. I was booked to open each night with a DJ set and perform alongside the opening act. The next 2 acts on the lineup were Jarv, a razor-sharp MC from Windsor, Vermont, and the Palmer Squares, a duo from Chicago whose chemistry and crowd work blew me away. Along the way, I also got to meet up with and interview some incredible people in the music and entertainment space, like Grammy-nominated music producers, large-scale event promoters, competitive dancers, and many talented musicians. And then there's a rapper I was booked to DJ for. If you're wondering why I haven't said his name yet, it's because things got complicated. We had a falling out on tour, and I've decided to keep his identity private for now, so I'll refer to him as Lil Pinecone.
I'll be at work.
We started working together during COVID when he bought beats from me. Several collaborations, and a few years later, he asked me to DJ for a tour he was going on. I said yes. No pay guaranteed, no clear plan, just a shot to get back on the road and back to the dream I'd been trying to kill for years. As the first show got closer and closer, my life looked like it was falling apart. Just weeks before flying out to the West Coast, I was the most broke I'd ever been. My car had been repossessed, and my closest relationships were getting rocky, all because of me. On top of that, I wasn't getting updates from the tour booker. None of my flights were booked for weeks, even after I was told they would be. My gear wasn't locked in, and I got to a point where I wasn't even sure if this thing was actually happening or not. I had traveled as a DJ countless times before, even with other MCs, rappers, and dancers, and this was the first time a trip like this stressed me out before it even started. However, I knew one thing was for sure. This tour was going to change my life, or I'd create something around it that would. And that meant I had to start filming immediately on day 1, which is exactly what I did.
I've been living again, and I've been living again. Man, girl, you gotta hold on me. You gotta hold on me.
My first few days away from home were full of doubt. Within 2 hours of landing in Arizona on day 1, we got pulled over. I thought this would be an ordinary traffic stop where Lil Pinecone would get ticketed for speeding, but instead we found out that he had a suspended license.
His license is still suspended.
This was news to me, and apparently to him too. So from this point forward, I had to do the rest of the driving, which gave my frustrations plenty of time to grow.
Life's a conundrum, where the shit come from. Demons I run from, run until the sun's up.
The wrong DJ gear was rented. I didn't know if I'd make any money on this trip. No hotels or Airbnbs were booked. And now I couldn't even get road footage with my camera because I'd be the one driving. All these small frustrations started to build some tension, and we hadn't even done our first show yet. All we'd done so far is record some content and do a little rehearsing at Lil Pinecone's house. We were able to do more rehearsing at Club Underground in Reno, which is where we met up with Brandon Deriso, a seasoned events promoter across various markets, Will Finn, a veteran front of house and live sound engineer, and Patrice Luciano, a former bar owner who's directed all of her attention to building a music career and her battle with breast cancer.
Invasive ductal carcinoma, grade 3. You know, when you're an artist, it's image. It's image. Like, you have to be a certain weight and you have to be a certain age.
Hearing Patrice's story gave me a boost in morale and a major reminder that I'm on the right path, because life can flip on a dime, which means it's never too late to go all in on something you believe in.
You can't, in order to get to the place that you want to get to, you have to listen to what's inside of you and not listen to the external things that are happening on the outside.
Ignore all the noise in the external world. This was another big takeaway for me, because whenever I'd tell people I was going on this tour, they just asked me how much I was getting paid, and I never had an answer for them since I really didn't know, so I just lied to them. With all of the misinformation I was given and disorganization that was going on before the tour, I didn't think I was going to get a single dime anyway. I actually thought I'd lose money, and I was more than willing to do this because it would put me back on track as a DJ. But more importantly, it would give me a story to tell. A story that would inspire you to go after what you truly want in life, even if the financial returns aren't obvious at first. Meet Brandon Deriso. He's responsible for a lot of the funding and facilitation behind this tour. Without him, Lil Pinecone wouldn't be booked on any of the shows, and I wouldn't be DJing.
If you're gonna be the type to try to manage artists, help them move along in their career, you're not deliberately looking for people you gotta hold their hand. What you really want is people who are doing it on their own, and then you come along and say, well, here's how I could light that fuse that's already underneath.
Brandon believed a lot in this tour, so I wanted to ask him how he got his start in events, artist management, and production in general.
My father was shot and killed in his home. When that happened, I just realized everything in one moment. I went, I don't want to put up billboards anymore. I don't want to work for other people anymore. I've got to find something else. And it so happened that George Eddie Lorton, he owned this particular club that we're standing in, and he gave me my shot starting the book.
Brandon told me he crashed and burned at the beginning of his career, but was able to rise out of the ashes like a phoenix. At first, he was growing too big, too fast, taking advantage of relationships, but changed the way he operated as his career matured. Thankfully, he was able to hold on to his relationship with Will Finn, his front of house and live sound engineer at Club Underground.
The club boss, Brandon Deriso, we worked together at previous rooms. He called me up one day. I said, yeah, heck yeah. This is a club that I kind of grew up in. Like most working sound guys, you know, I'm not in a pigeonhole. I work whatever comes through the room and whoever's paying.
Talking to Will reminded me why I started doing this in the first place. The sound, the scene, the grind behind the music, and how much it takes to make something real in this industry. Reno gave me a glimpse of what this tour could be and temporarily tapered my frustrations. We finally had our first hotel room too, thanks to Brandon. A bed, shower, and a moment to breathe felt like a gift from heaven. But it didn't last long. So we're in the hotel room. I'm kind of sick right now. I think
Lil Pine Cones.
Sick. Whole lot of issues came up today. We gotta figure out how we're gonna get
Lil Pine Cones
passport to us. Lil Pinecone couldn't find his passport, so we weren't sure if we'd be able to make it to Vancouver or not. He said he had it with him when I asked him before he left his house, but then he was saying his ex took it, not sure really what happened there. A few days later, we packed up, left Reno behind, and hit the road for Seattle. That's where we'd finally link up with Jarv in the Palmer Squares, and where the tour would officially begin. Getting to Seattle put my mind at ease. We stayed at a sketchy motel room that was about 20 minutes away from the venue. So, one of us is sleeping down there. The first night in that motel, I slept on the floor. When I woke up, I was so excited for the first show. We had tons of time to kill before soundcheck, so we shot a ton of promo and music video footage at a local park.
It's 3 a.m. and I'm walking towards the beach. Down to pound a chicken and I still feel the heat. I wonder while I wander if I'm gonna get some sleep. Did the same last week, now the cycle is complete. I'm numb from my head to my feet. Bitch!
Then, it was time to go to Chop Suey, the first venue we play at. So we're at the green room at Chop Suey in Seattle, Washington. Dope little spot in here. I DJ'd my first live set in a long time and felt great about it. I don't know how many tickets were sold, but I was impressed with the number of people who showed up. There were more than I expected, especially for a Wednesday night. And they were definitely there for Jarv and the Palmer Squares.
Life is a big commercial. Everybody rapping like it's a commercial.
This showed me that you don't always need an overwhelmingly large fan base to sell tickets in a big city. But what about a smaller city? That question would be answered the next day in Bellingham. Since we were less than 2 hours away from the next venue, we had a decent amount of time to kill, so my good friend Terry met up with us around Pike Place Market in Seattle and showed us around. This is the first time I ever saw a giant wall of gum. After a bit of sightseeing, we got to the Bellingham venue pretty early and did a typical sound check and setup. When doors opened, I kicked the night off with the DJ set to a room that was pretty much empty, and that was really disappointing. There were probably less than 30 people max in the entire place.
We've sold 30 tickets.
So after spinning for a little pinecone, I went back to the green room and got to know the Palmer Squares a bit better. They were some of the most down-to-earth performers I'd met and spoken with. They were also brutally honest, saying they thought they'd be further along in their careers by now and that it's sometimes hard to pay bills, but that they do what they love for a living and have been able to for years. I think all the acts were a bit disappointing to perform for such a small crowd, especially since the previous night was a much better turnout. Lil Pinecone and I definitely expressed some mutual frustration. However, I think we were both pretty happy we both had our own beds to sleep in, and neither one of us had to sleep on the floor again. For that night at least.
Even if the show is kind of whack, you have to give it everything, because even if there's fucking 20 people there, they're gonna go tell their friends, you know what I mean? Tonight, there's 2 people, this couple, so they drove from Montana 10 hours. So I was like, I'm gonna give them everything, because they're fans of mine. They drove 10 hours to see me. I want them to leave being like, damn, motherfuckers should have been here. They fucked up. I want them to leave with that rather than like, damn, Jarv's kind of a fucking loser, huh?
Alright, so we are in Bellingham, Washington right now at, I think it's called the Bells Inn, and we are about to check out. Today is day 10 for me being away from home, and it's day 3 of the tour. We're supposed to be in Vancouver tonight, but unfortunately can't find his passport, and probably won't even be able to get through the border anyway, even if he did, because he has a suspended license. Tensions started to rise on the way to Portland. I was pissed we couldn't go to Vancouver, and after a 4-hour drive there, Lil Pinecone said we'd have to sleep in the car that night. I told him if we had to consistently be sleeping in the car, I'd just be done with the tour. To his credit, before the tour started, he did mention we would be sleeping in whips some nights, so I couldn't fault him. And since I sleep with the CPAP machine, Lil Pinecone was generous enough to get a power inverter for the car, so we could leave the car on overnight, which costs around $12 to $15 in gas. Though this was a generous thing for him to do, there were a few things that Lil Pinecone said and did during the week and a half we'd already spent together that really made me question his character, and these were things that I hadn't picked up the previous times we worked together. For example, he mentioned that he would charge his roommates $600 or $700 per month each, so that he'd only be paying $200 a month, which I thought was a strange move since he didn't own the house or have a mortgage, and he was renting from a landlord. He asked me if I wanted to move in with him, and I definitely didn't after hearing that. He also told some fans of the Palmer Squares after a show that he was paying $350 a night to perform with Jarv in the Palmer Squares. But in private, he told me that Brandon Deriso was the one paying $350 per show to have him on the tour. You see, Lil Pinecone was a buy-on for the tour. The Palmer Squares or Jarv never asked him to be on tour with them. Brandon Deriso paid for him to be on the tour. Another thing was I never got tagged or shout out on social media, though Jarv and the Palmer Squares always did. Even though I'd be the one doing all of the back end work like driving, producing, recording, DJing, filming, and I never asked for anything in return. Before the tour even started, when we were on the phone months before it, he was saying, hey man, like, you know, if I win, you win, you know, we win together. So I was like, oh, is that still true? You know, I wanted to see where his head was at. And so when I asked him what I was getting out of the tour, he told me experience and connections, and that blew my mind. I had tons more experience and connections than he did across the country. I was immediately shocked when he said that, but I wasn't surprised after hearing all the other things he'd told me. We slept in the car, and we're in Portland, Oregon right now. We're about to do a show at the Jack London Review tonight. Vancouver last night seemed lit as fuck. Vancouver looked like that shit was packed. Yeah, bro, yesterday was a rough day for us, man. Our first day in Portland wasn't really eventful, aside from a ton of driving, some conflict between me and Lil Pinecone, and sleeping at a rest stop. Our second day, we took showers at a truck stop, did laundry, and shot some more footage for Lil Pinecone's music video. I also spoke with Lil Pinecone about turning all the footage I was getting into a tour documentary instead of just doing a traditional recap, or instead of just having generic performance and music video clips to post on social media. I wanted to do something different. So I started scheduling interviews with everyone I knew in the music and entertainment industry so we could have more faces, more perspectives, more stories on camera. And we both agreed to get to all of the interviews, even if it meant we'd get very little sleep and have to do a lot of driving to make them happen. People started confirming interview times and dates with me, which got us both excited, and we brought that positive energy we had to our next show, which thankfully had an awesome turnout. So we're at someone's house right now. They're letting us stay there. Her name's Dan, and I think Ashley is their names. It's a couple. Yeah, yep. How's it going, boss? I'm Eric.
What's up, dude? I'm Dan.
Nice to meet you, man. Thanks for letting us stay here. This is actually crazy. I can't believe it. Like, we're actually sleeping at someone else's house that I never met before because they just came to our show and they fucked with us. This is so sick. This is crazy dope. Peace. What's the name of your band? We'll just shout you out.
Doc Johnson. The Doc Johnsons.
Go listen to the Doc Johnsons. Alright, so we're on the way to Medford, Oregon right now. We left about an hour. We left for Medford with high spirits, though I didn't think many people were going to show up for the show that night since it was a Sunday in a relatively smaller city. However, it didn't matter much to me since the show in Portland was an awesome one, and I'd gotten a great night's sleep thanks to Dan and Ashley.
All my life I've looked for a reason. Friends changing like the seasons. I'm searching for some meaning. Can't help the way I'm feeling. All my life I've looked for a reason. Friends changing like the seasons. I'm searching for some meaning.
We're at the copper plank right now, and I think this show is going to be really light. Since there wasn't much going on in the audience, I interviewed the Palmer Squares and Jarv in the green room after a little Pinecone set.
I don't know if I knew I was going to be a touring rapper when I was studying film in college. I was doing video work in high school too, and I guess even before that I was editing skate videos. That's like how I started playing with cameras. I thought like, even if I don't go into like a line of work that is in the video field, it'll only help us with our rap music and just music endeavors. I left my job and then we went on like the longest tour we've ever been on right after that. And
No More Jobs tour.
No More Jobs tour. And we also had a manager at the time who was a piece of garbage who didn't know how to manage, and
Real dumb dick.
he really buried us in debt. But it's still, ever since then I've been able to do the rap shit professionally.
I constantly get hate comments online telling me that I made a horrible decision to give up my $200,000 a year career to dive headfirst into DJing and music production. But hearing Acumental talk about quitting his job further solidified in my head that I was on the right path. I mean, I would have never been able to do this tour in the first place if I was still working a corporate job. And if the Palmer Squares could recover from financial hardship with their former manager, why couldn't I recover from my own financial hardships?
We got booked to play some high school dance. It's like a regional like dance thing. We didn't know like any of the kids. There was like a town like 30 minutes away. They certainly were not trying to hear us rapping. People were paying attention for the first like half of the first song. By the end of the second song, people were straight up like booing and like laughing and shit. I mean, I literally questioned. I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can rap.
It's awesome to see how humble Jarv and the Palmer Squares are. Though they aren't household names, they build careers for themselves doing what they love with loyal, supportive fan bases, and they're able to tour the country all the time, and that definitely earns bragging rights in my book. Alright, we just checked out of our hotel in Medford. The next day, we had no show scheduled, which meant it was the perfect day to get a few interviews knocked out. We met up with Gabe Schillinger and Kyle David at the Legion Beats headquarters in San Rafael, California, to talk a little shop.
I don't know that there's ever a place where you definitely made it. I think maybe from the outside in, a lot of people have that view for music. Either you're like playing the Super Bowl halftime show or you're broke. It's not nearly that simple because there's just so many levels. Space. It's like the space is way more valuable than like the stuff. Think of like a cake or something, right? Like these layers of cake. Or if you have like too many things in one spot, it's gonna throw everything off.
Gabe has credits with some of the biggest acts in the music and entertainment industry, like Too Short, E40, Kendrick Lamar, and even the Jabberwockies. He's also one of the best marketers I've ever worked with, and I attribute many of the successes I've had in my music and marketing careers to him. I worked for him at Legion Beats in 2021 and 2022 as a copywriter, where he introduced me to a side of marketing, automation, and business I'd never seen before. He also introduced me to Kyle David, another extremely talented music producer who does a lot of the recording and engineering at Legion Beats, and even has a placement with Tech9.
The intention is to play in front of people. You want that crowd reaction. You want people involved. You want people to fucking like be hyped. Fly by the vibe. That's truly it. Like if it sounds good, use it. If it doesn't sound good, let it go.
Yeah, it's the same shit day in and day out.
I'm not sure what to expect tonight. I'm not expecting too many people because we're in the fucking middle of nowhere in California. No one's in Reading, but hopefully people show up and hopefully we kill it tonight. Well, I already know we're gonna kill it, but hopefully it's a poppin' night. Peace.
Weekend's done, so I'm back to life. We ain't doing shit till we catch a vibe. I can't do no 9 to 5. Me and E made a couple tracks tonight. Game winners like I'm Dame Lillard. You can't see it, let me paint a picture.
To my surprise, Reading turned out to be hype. We performed at a venue called The Dip, and Acumental from the Palmer Squares brought up a new collaborator of his, Jumoski. It's the first time they met in person, and they performed a new song they worked on together. However, I wasn't able to get as much footage as I wanted to because I started feeling sick again towards the end of the night. I wasn't sure if it was the constant changes in elevation, the stress, poor sleep, or everything combined that constantly made me feel like I wasn't at my best. Plus, my camera's lens cap broke right after the show, which added one more stressor to my life that I definitely didn't need. Fuck.
Last year I kept it on the top, ayy. Last year I came to fuck it up, yeah. Last year I came to fuck it up, yeah. Last year I came to fuck it up, yeah. Last year I came to fuck it up, yeah. You don't want shit, yeah.
The next day, we returned to Reno for a show at Club Underground, which is the venue that Brandon Deriso runs, and where the tension between me and Lil Pinecone started to peak. Our set started with some microphone issues, which was weird since the mic was working fine during sound check, but this definitely threw Lil Pinecone off for at least his first song. It wasn't the first time he had an offset either, since he'd messed up his lyrics or his track order on several of our other previous sets. During one of our last sets, he even just started talking over me as I was introducing him to the stage, which felt really weird. And when I addressed this to him, it felt like he didn't even realize or care. Overall, our set at Club Underground wasn't bad, and the rest of the show went well too. I met one of Jarv's fans, Jack, and got some really cool shots of him throughout Jarv's set. The Palmer Squares killed their set too.
I wanna take it to a whole nother level with I wanna take it to a whole nother level with I wanna take it to a whole nother level with I wanna take it to a whole nother level with.
Before the night was over, I was able to catch up with Ashton Roski, who's part of Brandon Deriso's event staff at Club Underground. I'd seen Ashton with Brandon for a majority of the day, so I figured he was one of Brandon's closest team members, and I wanted to see what insights he had as someone who's involved with the event scene in Reno.
There's a lot of behind the scenes work that you don't typically see. There's a lot more work than I initially thought going into show production.
After speaking with Ashton Roski, I went back inside Club Underground to remind Lil Pinecone that we had an interview scheduled the next day. It was in Los Angeles, about 8 hours away from Reno, Nevada, which meant we had to get up super early in the morning, and we'd only get about 3 or 4 hours of sleep each. I guess Lil Pinecone forgot about this interview because when I reminded him about it, he was very quick to say to cancel it. I was extremely frustrated by this because Lil Pinecone made it clear that he wasn't going to cancel any of these interviews, even if it meant that we were waking up early and driving out of the way to get to them, and even losing sleep to get to them. So when he told me he wanted to cancel on this producer, especially since it was a multi-platinum Grammy-nominated producer, I was pretty upset. We already canceled on a producer named Southlake because Lil Pinecone changed his mind on that interview. So I didn't want to make it a pattern to keep canceling on interviews that we had already said yes to days in advance. I kept reminding Lil Pinecone that's not a good look for either of us if we keep canceling on people, especially if they've got big names. And the producer we had an interview scheduled with the next day had a really big name and worked with some of the biggest people in the industry. I'd also reminded him that he gave me his word that he'd be down to do all the interviews, even if it meant we would lose sleep and have to drive out of the way to get to them. Lil Pinecone and I went back and forth on this for a while, but by the time we got to the hotel that night, he caved and said we could do the interview the next day, but he wasn't happy about it, and he made that very clear. Alright, it's like 4:30 a.m. I woke up around 4 a.m. with only 3 hours of sleep, knocked on Lil Pinecone's hotel room door to wake him up, and we were in the car by 5 a.m. We were headed to Los Angeles, California from Reno, Nevada, which was about an 8-hour drive. As soon as we got into the car, Lil Pinecone had a lot to say to me. He started off by saying that this is his shit, as in it's his tour, and that we have to do things his way. This was my internal breaking point, and when I decided to quit the tour in my mind. However, I didn't let him know I quit. I wasn't expecting any of this, and I just let him keep talking. He told me I couldn't film for Jarv and the Palmer Squares anymore, and that I can only film him, and that I have to get more footage of him with his fans, which is surprising because everyone was at these shows for the Palmer Squares and Jarv. I was also beyond appalled when he said this because I told him that I'd already had more footage of him than anyone else and that I could film whatever and whoever I wanted to since I'm not his personal videographer. I also said that since we're documenting the entire tour, I should be shooting everyone and not just him. Looking back on this conversation now, I think it's probably one of the most narcissistic things he could have told me because he's the least known, least experienced, and least charismatic out of every single person on the tour, and is significantly less interesting on camera than Jarv or the Palmer Squares. After he told me I could only shoot him, I addressed a major elephant in the room. I told him that my job is to DJ on this tour, and that's it. He replied with, well, if you're my DJ, I shouldn't have to rent equipment for you. He told me he spent $60 to rent gear for me from his friend, which turned out to be the wrong gear, funnily enough anyway. Plus, what he didn't realize is that it would have been more than double to fly out my own gear, and I wasn't going to pay to fly my own gear out to DJ for him, especially when he told me he could just get gear on his own. He then said that he thought it was dumb how we had to leave the car on overnight one night just so I could sleep with my CPAP machine, and that it was costing him too much money, which was maybe $15. After he said that, I just stayed silent. I genuinely did not know what to say. It's not that I was ungrateful for the things Lil Pinecone was doing or for the opportunity to even be on the tour. It was just that it felt like I was being blindsided by something new almost every day, even before the tour started. From hotel rooms, my flights, the gear, and even the paid opportunities I was told I'd probably have, there was a major gap in communication, and this is what was causing a lot of the tension. Lil Pinecone continued to make a case for himself on the way to Los Angeles, and I constantly felt like he was implying that I was a liability. And if that was the case, why would he even bring me on the tour in the first place? I mean, I don't even know how he would have made it to the first show if I wasn't riding with him because he got pulled over twice before even making it to Reno the first time for rehearsal. And each time he got pulled over, the cops said they'd have to tow the car if I wasn't there since he was driving with a suspended license. He argued that he bought the power inverter for my CPAP machine and was paying for all the hotel rooms too. And this was the moment I had completely made up my mind on Lil Pinecone because he said he was returning the power inverter as soon as the tour was over, so he'd be getting his money back. And more importantly, he wasn't paying for all the hotel rooms.
I'm looking at this rate online here for $117. Is that still available?
Brandon Deriso was paying for the hotels. I witnessed him pay for some of them right in front of me in Reno. Lil Pinecone also told me Brandon was sending him money for hotels too, and that's when I flat out told him, you're not paying for all the hotels. Funnily enough, when I said this, I wasn't even thinking about the hotel rooms Brandon Deriso already paid for. I was thinking about the hotels in San Diego and Hermosa Beach we'd be staying at courtesy of my girlfriend Jenna. Ironically, these were the only hotels booked in advance. Jenna planned to see me DJ 2 of the dates we had in California, so she flew out with her best friend Cheyenne and was kind enough to invite Lil Pinecone to stay in the rooms too. However, after Lil Pinecone had finished airing his grievances, I was pretty certain we wouldn't be touring together anymore, which meant he'd have to find another place to crash in San Diego and Hermosa Beach.
Los Angeles!
For the next 6 or 7 hours of the trip to LA, I was just thinking about all of the ways I'd messed up. I knew this would be the last time, the last day I'd ever want to work with or see Lil Pinecone. I felt like a failure and a loser. I threw away the last of my money and I knew I wasn't going to get anything in return. I was genuinely unsure of what to do, and all I knew was that I needed to get to this interview with Wyshmaster Beats.
Most people in the music business, in general, don't like to help others. My whole life taking on everything that came. So if it's like, hey, you know, if it's an opportunity, I just took it on.
Yeah.
So I worked with artists that totally like, I just like wanted to scream in the studio, or I'm just like, oh my god, I want to kill this guy or girl. Now in my career, I won't work with anybody. I don't want to. I know it's boring, but go learn the music business. Understand publishing, understand royalties and all that stuff, because that's most of the bad things in my life happen because I got screwed over. I do FaceTime calls. I play Roblox with my daughter a lot. Okay. So like we play like, she had me play this Dress to Impress game with her. Okay. It's like a modeling thing. It's very embarrassing, but I do that with her.
Getting to spend time with Wyshmaster Beats really put things into perspective for me, especially when he told me that he'd been broke several times and had many ups and downs throughout his career. The thing that stood out to me most was the fact that he and his wife are best friends and that his wife constantly pushes him to do music.
You have to have a support system in your life. Like if you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, and they don't like believe in your passion, and that's going to be very tough. Because if you don't have someone that takes you seriously, how are you going to ever believe in yourself if someone else doesn't believe in you? She believed in me my entire life. She always pushed me to music.
His relationship with his wife reminds me a lot of my relationship with my girlfriend. Not only are we best friends, but she's been one of the only people, if not the only person, in my life to push me towards music, my dreams, and my goals, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. She's been my rock and believes so much in me that she even flew out to the West Coast with her best friend to see me DJ for Lil Pinecone. And speaking of Lil Pinecone, I had to cut the interview with Wyshmaster a bit short since Lil Pinecone was pressing me on time. He had slept in the car during the interview, which was surprising to me since he had been present for every other interview we did. He was upset and felt I had taken too long because he wanted to make it to San Diego as soon as possible so he could rest up before the show that night. And that's when I broke the news to him. As soon as we left the hit firm, Wyshmaster Studio, I told Lil Pinecone I wasn't feeling the tour anymore. Told him I was done and that I'd drive to San Diego and we'd part ways there. To my surprise, he didn't argue with me, so we spent the next few hours to San Diego from Los Angeles in silence. I drove to the venue we were supposed to play at that night, got out of the car, grabbed my stuff, and said bye to Lil Pinecone. Let me just get the trunk, see if I miss anything. There you go. Alright, man.
Word. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. From this point forward, Lil Pinecone would have to get someone else to film, make beats, and DJ for him, or do it all himself. Plus, since he had a suspended license, he'd have to find someone else to drive or avoid getting pulled over. I felt really bad about quitting the tour, not because I'd left Lil Pinecone to fend for himself, but because my girlfriend Jenna and her best friend Cheyenne had flown from the East Coast to the West Coast to see me DJ 2 of my sets with Lil Pinecone, and now that wasn't happening. However, Jenna put things into perspective for me and was extremely supportive of me quitting. She'd been following Lil Pinecone on social media for the past few weeks and told me she also noticed he wasn't crediting me with anything or shouting me out on Instagram. And after explaining to her what happened between me and him throughout the tour, she also said I should just quit. So I did. Less than 24 hours after Lil Pinecone and I departed, I got a message from Deriso on Instagram asking what had happened. I guess Lil Pinecone had let him know I was no longer DJing for him. It seemed like Brandon didn't want things to be sour grapes between me and Lil Pinecone, so I let him know how things felt from my point of view. Looking back on these messages and on the tour as a whole, I really do think the majority of my frustration came from feeling like I was a liability. It wasn't about missing Vancouver, getting searched by the police, sleeping in the car, disappointing crowds, or losing money. Sure, all these things were definitely annoying, and I even told Lil Pinecone on our first phone call regarding the tour that I'd do anything, including pay money to get back into DJing as a career. But there was something that really severed my connection with Lil Pinecone on this tour that hadn't happened when I'd done events with other people, and I think it came down to me just feeling like I wasn't appreciated. And maybe that's something I just need to work on. After all, nobody's perfect, especially not me. Maybe I'm too sensitive and just took everything too personally. For what it's worth, I probably said and did some out-of-pocket things to Lil Pinecone too. I spent the next few days with Jenna and Cheyenne in Southern California. It was the first time Jenna had been to California, so I introduced her to some West Coast staples like In-N-Out Burger, the Santa Monica Pier, Venice Beach, the Abbey, and the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We also met up with some of my friends who have all been involved in entertainment in some way, from dance and event production to DJing and music production.
At the end of the night, usually when people are wasted and they come up to you and they go, yo, what a sick party. What a sick and safe party. That's what makes it all worth it, you know? That's why I love throwing parties.
Were you always super confident when you'd perform, or did you ever have like stage anxiety or performance anxiety?
Oh yeah, bro. I mean, I have a ton of stage anxiety.
Still?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
I grew up like as one of those quiet kids in class, you know? And like before I danced, I didn't have like a very loud personality. And then I feel like dancing and performing like took me out of that.
One thing our dance teacher always told us was when you're backstage getting ready to go on stage, don't watch the dancers before you. True. Because then you're gonna psych yourself out. True. hype yourself up backstage. Don't really pay too much attention of like who just performed in front of you. Watch the dances after you get off stage.
Right.
Bro, what's it like to be a fucking DJ out here in LA?
It's like being every other person in LA.
Usually it's personal recommendation from someone that I know. If they're as great as the people that I know say they are, then I'm there every weekend.
Being with Jenna made me feel really appreciated and almost opposite of what I felt throughout the tour. It felt awesome, but also weird. I didn't want the DJing to stop. I just wanted the circumstances to be different, and I thought they were going to be. I thought my life was going to change. I mean, it had to. The entire point of me going on tour in the first place was for me to change the path of my life, to course correct and go back to my original path as a music producer and DJ. This tour was supposed to give me tools to build something, or create a project that would give me meaning in my work again, so I didn't have to go back to the corporate life I felt miserable in. There was no way I could go back to a boring, stagnant life at home and be happy with it. I was living with my dad and stepmom for almost a year since I had quit my $200,000 a year copywriting career, and I couldn't afford to live on my own anymore since I had racked up a ton of debt living way beyond my means. When I was full-time copywriting, I thought I'd be making 6 figures every year for the rest of my life, and clearly I was wrong. And I was very wrong about the outcome of the tour. How was I still going to make this tour something worthwhile even though it had ended early and wasn't what I was expecting it to be? Alright, so we're in the airport, headed back to New Jersey.
Yay. No, not yay. I take it back.
We're coming back here soon.
New Jersey's hardly,
By the time I got back to my dad's house, I was more overwhelmed than ever, and I had nothing to show for myself that this tour had done anything for me or was even worth going on, except for hundreds of hours of footage on my hard drive. So I immediately got to editing, which is when I realized that what I had been filming wasn't even a tour documentary anymore. I was making a movie, a story that anyone who's ever chased any sort of goal, like a relationship, a project, an idea, or any other ambition, could relate to. This wasn't even about me, my goals, or even music anymore. Instead, what I'd been capturing was something similar to a hero's journey, a story with allies, enemies, mentors, rewards, challenges, and a call to adventure. The only problem was I never made a full-length movie before. I also wasn't even done shooting. In fact, I had scheduled an interview just days after I got back home with Southlake, the producer Lil Pinecone and I canceled on during the tour.
You're trying to play against the game, then you're gonna lose every single time. Like, I'm not like too good or too cool to not make content. Recently, I went to a concert. I took like a cassette tape. I took a whole bunch of beats, I recorded it on the tape, and gave it to him.
Southlake was the producer I thought I was before I sold out for my paycheck in corporate America, except I probably wasn't even close to being as talented or as humble as him. Talking to him rejuvenated a flame inside of me, and reminded me that I still have to go after my dreams while I still can. So what next? I couldn't stay at my dad's house, and I was itching to move back to Los Angeles where I'd lived most of my adult life, and had some established relationships already. Plus, Jenna and I had talked about moving in together for a while, and she was open to heading west, so we booked an Airbnb in Los Angeles for a few months as a temporary home base. Just weeks after the tour ended, Jenna and I were already on the road to our new life. This was Jenna's first time living anywhere aside from New Jersey, so it was a huge, life-changing decision for her, and I'll always be grateful she even considered it. As for me, this was the second time moving back out to Los Angeles from New Jersey. I first moved out to LA when I was 18, when I also wanted to make a career for myself as a DJ and music producer. I did okay, and at one point even survived completely off of music production and DJ money, but never took my career as far as I wanted to go, and I got distracted. This second time around though, I won't get sidetracked. I have the support of a phenomenal girlfriend and an overwhelming desire to make my dreams a reality. Plus, I think the universe has already given me signs that Los Angeles is the right place for me to build up my career, at least for now. In fact, just days before leaving, I got a text from Sean Solon, an entertainment agency owner based in Los Angeles who used to book me as a DJ. I hadn't DJ'd for his agency since before the COVID-19 pandemic, and I hadn't spoken to him in years. But for whatever reason, he had a party ready for me to DJ just 2 days after I'd moved to Los Angeles. And let me tell you, I crushed it. Alright, we just did an opening dance set. I had to change my shoes because they're killing me. This is really fun.
Dancing was my main focus, like for the past few years, but I think I'm kind of growing out of it. It kind of feels like I'm like changing myself to make that money.
Bruce was also hired by Sean's agency, H2H, as one of the dancers for the party, alongside another dancer and an MC named JD, who had worked with many times before. It was my first time meeting and working with Bruce, however, and I understood exactly how he felt after interviewing him. I think it's really common for entertainers to feel like they have to change themselves for money. Moreover, I think people in entertainment are pushed into projects they don't want to do because they're told they'll help move their careers along. But more often than not, these projects don't lead to anything and typically come with little or no pay. A perfect example of this is the tour I went on with Lil Pinecone. Though it was a tour I wanted to be part of, anytime I asked Lil Pinecone what I was getting out of it, he said experience and connections, which is the typical thing someone will tell you when they're giving you a bad deal. Lil Pinecone couldn't tell me how any of the experience or connections I was getting would help me progress my career when I pressed him on it, because he didn't bring me on the tour to help my career. He brought me on the tour to help his career, and I don't blame him. This kind of situation and lack of transparency is extremely common in any industry, and it's exactly why I knew I had to film the whole tour, so I could get content that I could hopefully use to progress my career in some way, i.e. this movie. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that only I and those who believe in me most can move my career forward, and the Dapper Rapper Tour was a major reminder of that. I've learned that most people presenting me with an opportunity are doing themselves a favor first, and won't screw themselves just to help me out. So why am I saying all of this? Because if you're like me, one of the few people chasing an unshakable compulsion, whether it's a dream to be a dancer, musician, actor, chef, writer, artist, business person, whatever it is, it's your responsibility to turn the chances you've been given into opportunities that can change your life. Nobody will make your dreams happen for you. Not only that, but while you're on your path, you'll probably experience immense chaos internally and externally. You might fall down into extremely depressing lows. You'll probably even have a few course corrections to get you back on track, and when you finally get back on track, you might doubt every decision you've made in your life up until that point. Now, I don't say this to scare you or to instill fear, but because this is the path every dreamer, every trailblazer travels. A path that can lack certainty, clarity, and direction. It's the path we take because the alternatives just don't make sense to us, even if they make sense to everyone around us. It's the price we're willing to pay for something that isn't even guaranteed. To everyone else, the cost might seem too high. But to you and I, it's just the price of a dream.
This is behind the scenes of Eric filming his movie. Ready? The king of patience.
Stop fighting! Okay, stop fighting! Okay, stop fucking fighting! Quit shocking me! Give us your other hand! Quit shocking me! Give us your other hand! You are all breaking my... Is this a bit?
Oh.
And I asked her to send somebody here. She wouldn't do it. Not right. Not right.
Officer, what's your name?
Ledesma.
What is it?
Ledesma.
Can you spell it?
Ledesma.
ESMA.
Officer Ledesma, thank you for your kindness tonight. Hey, this is Eric DiGiovanni. Thanks for making it through the entire movie. I really appreciate it. It took a lot of time to do this. And I just wanted to remind you that this isn't a hate piece or anything like that on Lil Pinecone, and there were so many other things that I didn't even include in the movie just because of how petty they were, or just stupid things that happened throughout the tour. Instead of it being a hate piece, it's more of just a piece to remind you about how intense or how chaotic being on tour or just chasing your dreams can be. And it's also a reminder that doing it alone and doing it without people who are there for you, like this special lady, how important these people are for you when you're on your purpose, on your mission, and on your path. So just wanted to leave you with that. Thanks again for watching. You can check out the rest of my stuff. Just look up Eric DiGiovanni online or go to ericdigiovanni.com.